Confrontation. And I promise you, Section 31 will lose that confrontation. Rand stood slowly, her hand moving deliberately to her phaser. That sounds like a threat, Lord Vader. It is a statement of capability, Vader corrected. Your Section 31 operates from shadows, eliminating threats before they grow dangerous. But I am already dangerous, Commander. I have destroyed Jedi Masters, conquered systems, commanded fleets that made entire sectors tremble. Your operatives are skilled, but they have never faced a Sith Lord. Do not confuse your empires. Power with personal invincibility. I respect your Section 31. I will cooperate with them when our interests align, but I will not submit to them. If they attempt to force submission, people will die. Many people. And Section 31 will learn that some beings cannot be controlled, only accommodated or destroyed. I suggest accommodation. The silence in conference room 3 stretched like a wire pulled to breaking point. Rand's hand remained on her phaser. Vader's mechanical breathing filled the space with rhythmic menace. Through the Force, he felt her calculation. She wanted to draw her weapon, wanted to test whether his claimed abilities could truly stop her. But she also recognized that testing such abilities in enclosed space would likely result in her death, regardless of outcome. Finally, slowly, Rand's hand moved away from her phaser. She deactivated the recording device with a sharp gesture. Off the record, she said quietly, her professional mask cracking to reveal something harder underneath. Section 31 has eliminated threats across the galaxy. We've toppled governments, assassinated emperors, prevented wars, and started others when necessary. We are the darkness that protects the Empire from greater darkness. If you truly are as powerful as you claim, that makes you one of the greatest threats we've ever encountered. On the record, I'll report that you're cooperating within acceptable parameters. Off the record, understand this. Section 31 is watching you. Every move, every word, every action. If you betray the Empire, if you threaten Imperial security, we will end you. We'll find a way. We always do. Vader's mask tilted fractionally. I appreciate honesty, Commander, so let me offer the same courtesy. I have no intention of betraying your empire. I have no interest in your internal politics or power, structures beyond ensuring my survival. But if Section 31 attempts to end me, you will discover why Emperor Palpatine, the most powerful being in my galaxy, treats me with cautious respect rather than absolute control. I am his weapon because he cannot destroy me. Section 31 should consider that dynamic carefully. Rand held his gaze for 5 full seconds, then nodded fractionally. Message received. I'll include in my report that you're valuable. Asset with significant capabilities and autonomous nature. Recommended classification. Handle with extreme caution. Accommodate reasonable requests. Monitor closely but do not antagonize without overwhelming tactical advantage. A reasonable assessment, Vader acknowledged. In return, I will provide Section 31 with tactical analysis of Romulan operations, training protocols for enhanced combat doctrine, and consultation on military strategy when requested. I will not provide biological samples, will not submit to neural scanning, and will not permit analysis of Force abilities beyond verbal explanation. These are non-negotiable terms. I'll convey your terms to my superiors. Rand began deactivating her scanning equipment with efficient movements. They won't like them, but they'll accept them, at least initially. You've proven your value against the Klingon. That buys you time and leverage. Use both wisely. Lord Vader, the moment your value becomes outweighed by your threat level, accommodation ends. And Section 31 solutions are permanent. All solutions are permanent, Commander, until someone stronger arrives to revise them. Vader moved toward the door, then paused. One more thing. Your scanning equipment attempted to analyze my Force connection throughout this conversation. It failed, as I knew it would. But the attempt suggests Section 31 seeks technological countermeasures. Advise your superiors that the Jedi Order, with access to the finest minds and technologies in galactic history, never successfully nullified Force abilities. Your empire will not succeed where they failed. Some powers exist beyond technology's reach. Accept that limitation or waste resources on futile research. The choice is yours. He swept from the conference room, leaving Rand alone, with her deactivated scanners and the growing realization That Section 31 had just encountered something unprecedented, a threat they couldn't eliminate, couldn't control, and couldn't ignore. The safest option was exactly what Lord Vader had proposed: accommodation, cooperation, and mutual respect maintained through mutual capability for destruction. It was the most honest relationship Section 31 had established in decades, possibly the most dangerous as well. Commander Rand began compiling her report, choosing her words with exceptional care, because she understood, with absolute clarity, that this report might determine whether the Terran Empire gained its greatest tactical asset or its most lethal enemy. And in the Terran Empire, that distinction was often decided by a single word, a single gesture, or a single moment when accommodation failed and darkness consumed everything in its path. She hoped her superiors understood that. She suspected they would not. Some lessons could only be learned through blood. The ISS Enterprise dropped from warp at the edge of System J 4772 hours after Vader's consultation with Section 31. The intervening days had been productive tactical simulations, run until the bridge crew could execute emergency maneuvers in their sleep. Graviton sensor arrays recalibrated to Vader's specifications and intelligence analysis refined to predict Romulan patrol patterns with disturbing accuracy. Now came the test. Theory transformed into operational reality. Kirk stood at the center of his bridge, hands clasped behind his back, watching the viewscreen display empty space that might conceal invisible enemies. Status, Mr. Spock. Entering System J-47 perimeter now. Captain. Spock's fingers danced across his science station, deploying scientific survey probes as planned. Stellar cartography sensors active. We are broadcasting standard research mission profiles on all channels. To external observation, we appear to be conducting routine stellar analysis. And to internal observation, Kirk asked quietly. Graviton sensors configured per Lord Vader's specifications, focused on coordinates where Romulan patrol vessels should materialize based on predictive modeling. If the analysis is correct, we should detect cloaked contacts within the next 4.7 minutes. Spock glanced toward the tactical station where Vader stood beside Sevek, his armored presence dominating the bridge like a black obelisk. Assuming Lord Vader's tactical predictions prove accurate, they will, Vader stated without arrogance, merely certainty. Through the Force, he felt the system around them, the distant star's radiation, the asteroid field trailing gravitational distortions, and something else. Something that displaced mass without generating visible signature. 3 contacts, exactly where his analysis predicted. Commander Spock, focus graviton array on bearing 273 Mark V. Narrow beam, maximum resolution. You will detect 3 distinct mass signatures displacing approximately 45,000 metric tons each. Spock's eyebrow climbed as his sensors confirmed the prediction within seconds. Confirmed. 3 contacts bearing 273 Mark V. Range 17,000 kilometers. Mass and configuration consistent with Darth-class Romulan warbirds. They are maintaining stationary position, cloaked, observing our survey operations. The bridge crew exchanged glances, impressed, unnerved, or calculating depending on individual personality. Kirk moved to tactical, studying the sensor readout with predatory interest. 3 Romulan heavy cruisers, invisible to conventional detection, watching from what they believed was perfect concealment. The intelligence value alone was staggering. But Kirk being Kirk, he wanted more. Spock, can we get detailed sensor readings without alerting them to our scans? Affirmative, Captain. The graviton beam is sufficiently narrow that it should not register on their passive sensors. We can gather structural analysis, weapons configuration, shield harmonics. Spock paused, his expression shifting to genuine surprise. Captain, I am detecting a 4th contact. Much larger. Bearing 281 Mark 12, range 23,000 kilometers. Mass displacement suggests a Romulan command vessel, possibly a flagship. Vader's mask tilted with dark satisfaction. As predicted, 3 patrol cruisers maintaining standard surveillance while command vessel observes from secondary position. The Romulans are not merely watching your survey mission. They are analyzing your new tactical capabilities after your victory over Commander Krell. They seek to understand how you defeated superior numbers, which means they're taking us seriously, Kirk said with grim pleasure. Sulu, how close can you bring us to those patrol vessels without appearing to pursue them? Lieutenant Sulu studied his navigation plot, fingers hovering over controls with fencer's precision. I can execute a survey pattern that brings us within 12,000 kilometers while maintaining scientific mission profile. If they're stationary, we'll pass close enough for detailed scans without appearing to deviate from research objectives. Make it so. Uhura, maintain standard research broadcasts. I want everything looking routine until the moment it's not. Kirk returned to his command chair, settling into it with the coiled readiness of a hunter approaching prey. Lord Vader, your assessment. If the Romulans realize we've detected their cloaked vessels, what's their likely response? Through the Force, Vader considered the tactical psychology. The Romulans were not Klingon. They would not charge into glorious battle when discovered. But they were also not cowards. Honor and strategic calculation would demand response that maintained their reputation while minimizing risk. They will withdraw initially, Vader predicted. Cloaking technology requires they avoid engagement where their advantage is compromised, but they will report to command that you possess capability to penetrate their stealth systems. This triggers strategic decision at higher levels. Adapt their cloaking technology, change patrol patterns, or escalate to eliminate your detection capability before you disseminate it across your fleet. Escalate meaning attack. McCoy asked from his auxiliary medical station. Flask already in hand despite the early hour, meaning they will test whether your detection method is technological breakthrough or isolated capability. Vader clarified. If technological, they must steal or destroy it. If isolated to this vessel or specific crew, they may attempt to eliminate key personnel, your science officer, your engineers, or his mask turned toward McCoy with mechanical menace. The alien tactical advisor who provided the analytical framework. McCoy took a deliberate drink. Wonderful. I'm starting to think having you aboard is bad for life expectancy. Life expectancy in the Terran Empire is already poor. Vader replied without sympathy. I merely provide more interesting causes of death. Approaching closest sensor range, Sulu reported. Executing survey pattern Baker 3. Will pass within 11,000 kilometers of the patrol vessels in 30 seconds. The bridge fell silent except for the soft chirping of instruments and Vader's mechanical breathing. On the tactical display, the Enterprise's course appeared to meander through the system in the random patterns of scientific curiosity, deploying probes, analyzing stellar phenomena, completely innocent. But beneath that facade, every sensor was locked on the three cloaked warboards that believed themselves invisible. Range 10,000 kilometers, Sevek announced. Graviton sensors at maximum resolution. I am reading detailed hull configurations, weapons placements, shield generator locations. Captain, this is Intelligence Data Section 31 would classify above top secret. We're getting complete technical readouts of their latest warbird design. Download everything, Kirk ordered. Spock, transmit to secure storage with encryption level Omega-7. If we don't survive the next 10 minutes, at least Starfleet intelligence will benefit from our sacrifice. Optimistic as always, Captain, Spock replied dryly, his fingers flying across controls. Data transmission complete. We now possess technical specifications for the Daradex class that the Romulans believe are completely secure behind their cloaking technology. Beautiful, Kirk breathed. Then his expression hardened. Sulu, adjust course. I want a trajectory that takes us directly between those three patrol vessels, close enough that they'll have to move or risk collision. Vader's respirator cycled sharply. You intend to force their hand. Make them choose between maintaining cloak and maintaining position. If they move, they reveal themselves. If they don't move, we pass close enough to potentially collide, which would also reveal them. Exactly. Kirk confirmed with dangerous smile. They came here to spy on us. Time they learned that spies sometimes get caught. Sulu, execute when ready. Nice and casual, like we have no idea they're there. The Enterprise altered course with smooth precision, angling directly toward the coordinates, where three invisible starships maintained silent watch. Through the Force, Vader felt the moment the Romulan commanders recognized the danger, confusion, then alarm, then desperate calculation, as they realized the Terran vessel was approaching on collision course while broadcasting scientific analysis completely oblivious to their presence. 8,000 kilometers, Sevek counted down. 7,000. 6,000. Captain, at current velocities. Closest approach will be less than 200 meters from the lead patrol vessel. If they maintain position. They won't, Kirk said confidently. Nobody maintains position when a Constitution-class starship is about to plow through them at impulse velocity. Not even Romulans. 5,000 kilometers. 4,000, Sevek paused, his sensors suddenly registering massive energy spikes. Captain, all three vessels are decloaking, shields coming online, weapons charging. The view screen erupted with green fire as three Romulan Darth-class warboats materialized from nothingness, their distinctive double-hull design emerging, like predatory birds spreading wings. Disruptor banks glowed with lethal charge. Plasma torpedo tubes tracked the Enterprise with targeting locks that screamed. Across every sensor frequency. Red alert. Kirk snapped, the bridge lighting shifting to combat crimson. Shields up. Evasive maneuvers. Belay that order, Vader commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos with absolute authority. Maintain current course and velocity. Do not raise shields. Do not charge weapons. You will broadcast confusion and apology for nearly colliding with undetected vessels. Kirk spun in his chair, fury blazing across his features. You want us to sit here unarmed while three warboats have us in targeting solutions? Are you insane? I am tactical genius preventing unnecessary battle, Vader corrected coldly. Through the Force, he felt the Romulan commander's indecision. They decloaked to avoid collision, revealing themselves in the process. But the Enterprise's complete lack of aggressive response confused them. Standard Terran doctrine would be to raise shields and weapons immediately. The continued research mission profile, the absence of combat readiness, suggested either stunning incompetence or something else. Captain Kirk, Spock interjected urgently. Lord Vader may be correct. The Romulans revealed themselves to avoid collision. If we respond with immediate aggression, we confirm we deliberately forced them to decloak effectively, admitting we detected their cloaked vessels. But if we appear confused by their sudden appearance, we maintain plausible deniability. They cannot be certain we detected them beforehand versus merely stumbling across their position. Kirk's jaw worked, his tactical mind racing through scenarios. Every instinct screamed to raise shields, to prepare for battle, to respond to threat with strength. But Spock and Vader were right. Appearing weak in this moment actually preserved strategic advantage. The Romulans wouldn't know if their cloaking technology had been compromised, or if this was cosmic accident. Uhura, Kirk said through gritted teeth, broadcast standard apology protocol. Science vessel nearly collided with unidentified contacts. Request identification and clarification of territorial status. Uhura's fingers danced across her console, transmitting the message with professional courtesy that masked the fact she was addressing three heavily armed warships that could vaporize the Enterprise within seconds. The response came immediately, audio only. The voice filtered through universal translation into clipped, suspicious tones. Terran vessel, you are operating near the Romulan neutral zone. Your presence here violates treaty protocols regarding scientific operations in contested space. Explain your mission and withdraw immediately, or we will consider your actions hostile reconnaissance. Kirk smiled his predator's smile. Hostile reconnaissance. That's rich, considering you were sitting here cloaked, spying on us. Uhura, respond with maximum diplomatic courtesy. We're conducting stellar cartography surveys for navigational purposes. No hostile intent. Request confirmation that we're outside the neutral zone boundaries, as charted in our databases. Another pause, longer this time. Through the Force, Vader felt the Romulan commander's calculation, the Terran vessels. Story held plausible validity. They were technically outside neutral zone boundaries, and attacking without confirmed treaty violation would trigger political complications. But the commander also suspected something wasn't right, that the near collision was too convenient, that perhaps the Terrans had detected them after all. Your position is acceptable under treaty constraints. The Romulan voice finally responded. However, your recent military actions against Klingon forces suggest your presence here serves purposes beyond cartography. We will be monitoring your activities. Any deviation toward the neutral zone will be considered act of war. Maintain your distance, Terran. Our patience has limits. The three warbirds held position for 3 more seconds, weapons charged, shields at maximum, making clear they could destroy the Enterprise if provoked, then vanished in shimmers of green energy as their cloaking devices re-engaged. The view screen displayed empty space again, but every sensor confirmed the Romulan vessels remained in position. Invisible once more, watching. Stand down, red alert, Kirk ordered, his voice carrying carefully controlled fury. Maintain research operations. Sulu, adjust our survey pattern away from Romulan positions. Make it look natural, like we're nervous about their presence. Spock, did we get everything we needed? Affirmative, Captain. Complete technical specifications on all 3 warbirds, including detailed analysis of their cloaking system harmonics, shield frequencies, and weapons configurations. Additionally, we now have confirmation that our graviton detection methodology functions as predicted. We detected them while cloaked. They did not detect our scanning, and they cannot be certain whether our near collision was coincidence or deliberate provocation. Spock's tone carried satisfaction that pierced his Vulcan composure. From intelligence perspective, this operation was unqualified success. From terror of nearly dying perspective, it was nightmare, McCoy muttered, taking another drink. But I'll grant that it worked. Barely. Kirk stood, moving to confront Vader directly. You countermanded my order on my bridge during combat situation. In the Terran Empire, that's grounds for summary execution. Explain why I shouldn't space you right now. Through the Force, Vader felt Kirk's genuine anger warring with reluctant respect. The captain hated having his authority challenged, especially publicly, but he also recognized that Vader's tactical instinct had prevented battle that would have forced Romulan response and potentially revealed the Empire's new detection capabilities prematurely. Because I was correct, Vader stated simply. Your instinct was to fight. My analysis determined that appearing weak in this moment preserved strategic advantage. The Romulans now cannot confirm whether we detected them or merely encountered them accidentally. That uncertainty prevents them from immediately adapting their cloaking technology or escalating to eliminate our detection capability. We gained complete intelligence while maintaining tactical ambiguity. That is worth more than your pride, Captain Kirk. Kirk stared at Vader for 5 long seconds while the bridge crew held collective breath. Finally, slowly, his expression shifted from fury to grudging acknowledgement. You're right. I hate that you're right. I especially hate that you countermanded me publicly, and you were still right. Kirk jabbed a finger toward Vader's chest. But understand this, Lord Vader. I am captain of this vessel. My orders are absolute unless I specifically request tactical input. You want to challenge my decisions? Do it privately, where my crew doesn't witness my authority being questioned. That's how command works in this empire. Do we understand each other? We do, Vader acknowledged. I overstepped appropriate boundaries. It will not happen again without significantly greater threat, requiring immediate action. Significantly greater threat meaning what, exactly? Borg Cube, Vader replied without hesitation. Darkseid's invasion fleet. Hugh manifesting to destroy reality. Threats of that magnitude. Short of such circumstances, your authority aboard this vessel remains absolute. Kirk's smile returned, sharp and dangerous. I can work with that. Mr. Sulu, resume course toward Federation border. We have intelligence data to transmit and a commendation to claim for discovering Romulan treaty violations. Spock, compile the technical analysis into format suitable for Starfleet intelligence. Make sure our graviton detection methodology is documented in sufficient detail that other ships can replicate it. Captain, Vader said quietly, disseminating that methodology too widely may be premature. Kirk turned, eyebrow raised. You just helped us develop a way to detect cloaked Romulan vessels. And now you want to keep it secret? What happened to helping the Empire? I want to maintain strategic advantage, Vader corrected. If every vessel in your fleet suddenly demonstrates capability to detect cloaked ships, the Romulans will know their technology is compromised. They will adapt rapidly, modify cloaking frequencies, develop countermeasures. Perhaps even steal a vessel to analyze how you achieve detection. But if only select ships possess this capability, if detection events remain rare enough to appear coincidental, the Romulans cannot be certain their cloaking is compromised. Uncertainty paralyzes their response. They must continue operating under assumption that they remain invisible while simultaneously preparing for possibility they do not. Spock's fingers paused mid-motion, his logical mind racing through implications. Strategic information warfare. By limiting dissemination, we maximize the technology's effectiveness until the moment we choose to reveal it broadly. The Romulans waste resources, investigating isolated incidents rather than implementing fleet-wide adaptations. Exactly, Vader confirmed. You demonstrate such thinking in military campaigns. Hold reserves until decisive moment. Reveal capabilities strategically rather than displaying full strength immediately. This principle applies to intelligence operations as well. Secret detection capability provides more advantage than known detection capability, at least until you're prepared for Romulan adaptations. Kirk returned to his command chair, steepling his fingers thoughtfully. You're suggesting we keep this graviton detection method classified at levels above standard Starfleet intelligence, limited to select vessels and commanders. I'm suggesting you provide Section 31 with the methodology and let them determine appropriate dissemination. Vader said, they specialize in maintaining strategic secrets. They will understand the value of controlled revelation versus immediate broadcast. Kirk and Spock exchanged glances loaded with unspoken communication. Finally, Kirk nodded slowly. Commander Rand will love that recommendation. Gives Section 31 more control over critical technology, which expands their influence. But you're right about the strategic logic. Spock, encrypt the technical data with Section 31 access protocols. Standard intelligence distribution only, need-to-know basis. We'll let them decide when and how to deploy this capability fleet-wide. Acknowledged, Captain. Spock resumed his documentation with renewed focus. Kirk studied Vader with calculating intensity. You know, Lord Vader, for someone who claims to have no interest in Terran Empire politics, you demonstrate remarkable understanding of how power actually functions here. Information control, strategic revelation, maintaining advantage through careful dissemination. That's not military tactics. That's political manipulation at the highest levels. I served Emperor Palpatine, Vader replied quietly. He taught me that military force is merely one tool of control. Information, fear, strategic manipulation, these are equally important. I am military commander, yes, but I am also political weapon. The Emperor ensured I understood both roles. Your empire operates on similar principles, merely with less centralized authority and more chaotic execution. Chaotic but effective, Kirk countered. We've built an interstellar empire in 2 centuries through that chaos. How long did your galactic empire take? Millennia, Vader admitted. But we spanned an entire galaxy. You control perhaps 10% of this one. The scale differs. The principles remain similar. McCoy's voice drifted from his station with alcohol-tinged philosophy. 2 tyrannies comparing notes on the best way to oppress the masses. This is why I drink. At least when I'm drunk. The universe makes exactly as much sense as when I'm sober. Which is to say, none at all. Dr. McCoy, Kirk said with dangerous cheerfulness. Your cynicism is noted and ignored. We just achieved major intelligence victory against the Romulans without firing a shot. That's worth celebrating, not drinking away. I'm celebrating by drinking, McCoy replied without missing a beat. You celebrate your way, I'll celebrate mine. At least my way doesn't involve nearly colliding with invisible warships. Despite the tension of the previous moments, scattered laughter rippled across the bridge. Even Kirk's smile became genuine rather than predatory. Vader observed the dynamic. With analytical interest, the Terran crew bonded through dark humor and shared survival in ways that differed from Imperial military culture, but achieved similar cohesion. Perhaps chaos had advantages he'd not fully appreciated. Perhaps order and chaos both served purposes depending on circumstance. Captain, Uhura interrupted from communications, her expression suddenly serious. I'm receiving priority transmission from Starfleet Command. Encryption level Omega 9. Eyes only for commanding officer. Kirk's humor vanished instantly. Omega 9 encryption meant the transmission came directly from the Emperor or his closest advisors. Nothing good ever came through Omega 9 channels. Transfer to my ready room, Kirk ordered, standing with the coiled readiness of someone expecting bad news. Spock, Lord Vader, with me. The rest of you maintain stations. If the Romulans decide to decloak and shoot us while I'm reviewing classified orders, feel free to respond appropriately. Define appropriately, Sulu called after him. Creatively, Kirk replied over his shoulder. Surprise me. The ready room doors hissed shut behind them, sealing Kirk, Spock, and Vader in the small chamber. Kirk activated his terminal, entering authorization codes with practiced efficiency. The screen flickered, then displayed the Terran Empire's sigil, a sword piercing a globe. Brutal and unambiguous. Text scrolled across the display, and Kirk's expression darkened with each passing second. Problem, Captain? Spock inquired. Multiple problems, Kirk growled. First, our victory over Commander Krell attracted attention from Klingon High Command. They've declared blood feud against the Enterprise and specifically against me for killing a decorated commander. Standard Klingon honor nonsense. Except they've assigned a battle group to hunt us specifically, 6 heavy cruisers, 2 battleships, commanded by General Cord. He's their best tactical officer and absolutely committed to restoring Krell's honor through our destruction. A blood feud battle group, Vader observed. 8 ships dedicated to eliminating 1 vessel. Inefficient, but psychologically satisfying for warrior culture. They will pursue you relentlessly until you're destroyed, or they are. Gets better, Kirk continued, his tone dripping acid. Second, the Emperor himself has taken interest in our mysterious tactical advisor. He wants comprehensive report on your capabilities, your loyalties, and your long-term intentions. He's authorized Section 31 to take whatever measures necessary to ensure you're not a threat to Imperial security, which in Section 31 language means they now have permission to kill you if they decide it's necessary. Vader's respirator cycled with dark amusement. The Emperor fears me. Good. Fear breeds respect. Respect provides opportunity. The Emperor doesn't fear anyone, Kirk corrected sharply. He's curious, which is arguably worse. Curious emperors conduct experiments. And in this empire, experiments on powerful unknowns usually end with dead test subjects and revised security protocols. Then I will demonstrate that I am valuable test subject worth keeping alive. Vader replied. The Klingon blood feud provides perfect opportunity. Your Krell battle group seeks revenge. I seek to prove my worth to your Emperor. We will destroy General Cord's forces so decisively that the Klingon fear to challenge the Enterprise again. Your Emperor will see value that exceeds threat. Section 31 will recommend accommodation rather than elimination, and your career benefits from defeating superior numbers once more. Spock's eyebrow climbed toward his hairline. You propose to use a Klingon blood feud as political theater to demonstrate your value to the Emperor? Bold, potentially effective, also extraordinarily dangerous if we fail. Then we will not fail, Vader stated with absolute certainty. I have faced worse odds and prevailed. 8 Klingon vessels against the Enterprise? With my tactical guidance and your crew's growing competence? Those are not impossible odds. Commander Spock, those are merely interesting ones. Kirk studied Vader with expression-mixing calculation, ambition, and recognition that he was about to gamble his ship, his crew, and his career on the tactical brilliance of a Dark Lord from another dimension. It was exactly the kind of gamble Kirk loved. All right, Lord Vader. We'll use Cord's blood feud to demonstrate your value. But understand this. If we fail, if you're wrong about those odds, we all die. And death in the Terran Empire is rarely quick or dignified. Then we will ensure our deaths are legendary, Vader replied, his mechanical breathing somehow conveying dark satisfaction. Because that is the only alternative to victory, and I do not accept alternatives. Kirk's smile became genuine, dangerous, and absolutely committed. Now that's the attitude I like. Mr. Spock, plot a course that makes us obvious bait for a Klingon blood feud battle group. Lord Vader, Start planning how we destroy 8 warships with one. And someone get me a drink. If we're going to commit tactical suicide, I want to toast the attempt properly. In the vast darkness between stars, events were accelerating toward collision. The Romulans watched with suspicious interest. The Klingons sharpened their blades for vengeance. The Emperor observed from his throne with calculating curiosity. And Section 31 prepared contingencies for every possible outcome, including the one where Darth Vader became too powerful to control. But the Dark Lord had faced galaxies in turmoil before. He had walked through fire and emerged transformed into living darkness. He had conquered the unconquerable and survived the unsurvivable. One more impossible battle was merely another step toward whatever destiny awaited him in this universe of shadows and empires. And if that destiny required destroying a Klingon battle group to prove his worth, so be it. The Sith had always preferred demonstrations to explanations anyway. The trap was set with meticulous precision across 3-star systems, a trail of breadcrumbs designed to lure Klingon pride into a killing field of Vader's design. The ISS Enterprise had spent 4 days executing what appeared to be routine patrol operations, while broadcasting encrypted communications, just poorly encrypted enough that Klingon intelligence would intercept and decode them. Those communications painted a picture of a vessel operating alone, its captain overconfident after recent victories, its crew relaxing discipline in the absence of immediate threat. It was bait wrapped in arrogance, and Klingon honor would never refuse it. Contact, Sevek announced from Tactical, his Vulcan composure unable to fully mask satisfaction. 8 warp signatures emerging from subspace, bearing 187 Mark 9. Configuration matches Klingon Battle Group 6, D7, class cruisers and 2 K-Tinga-class battleships. They're dropping to impulse at maximum engagement range. Weapons charging. Shields at full power. Kirk leaned forward in his command chair, fingers steepling as the viewscreen displayed General Kord's battle group materializing like predators circling wounded prey. The Klingon vessels arranged themselves with military precision, battleships anchoring the formation's center, cruisers spreading in classic pincer configuration designed to bracket the Enterprise from multiple vectors. It was textbook Klingon tactics. Aggressive but disciplined. Exactly what Vader had predicted. Spock, analysis. Kirk ordered. General Kord is executing standard Klingon superiority doctrine. Spock replied from his science station, his tone carrying approval for enemy competence even as he calculated their destruction. He maintains maximum weapons range while positioning for coordinated strike. His formation prevents us from focusing fire on individual vessels without exposing ourselves to crossfire from others. Logically sound for his numerical advantage. Also predictable, Vader added from his position beside Tactical, his presence dominating the bridge like a shadow given form. Kord thinks in terms of overwhelming force applied systematically. He will offer you ritual challenge. Demand your surrender to satisfy Klingon honor protocols. Then attack when you refuse. The question is whether we spring our counterattack during his challenge, or after he commits to his assault. Through the Force, Vader felt the Klingon commander's intent, burning with righteous fury over his comrade's death, yet disciplined enough to execute proper tactical formation. Kord was not mere berserker. He was warrior scholar, who understood that vengeance served best when delivered with certainty rather than passion. That made him dangerous. It also made him vulnerable to tactics he'd never encountered. Incoming transmission, Uhura reported. General Kord wishes to speak with Captain Kirk directly. On screen, Kirk commanded, standing with theatrical precision. Let's see what Klingon honor demands before we crush it. The viewscreen shifted from tactical display to close-up of General Kord, a Klingon whose face bore the ritual scars of 100 battles, whose eyes burned with controlled fury, and whose posture radiated authority that came from decades of military command. He wore the baldric of a general, carried himself with the dignity of someone who'd earned every commendation through blood, and spoke with voice that could command armies or whisper death threats with equal effectiveness. Kirk of the Enterprise. Kord's voice rumbled through the universal translator with barely contained violence. You murdered Commander Krell? a decorated officer of the Klingon Defense Force, using cowards' tactics and dishonorable maneuvers. The High Council has declared blood feud against you and your vessel. I am here to collect that debt in the name of Klingon honor and warrior tradition." Kirk smiled his predator's smile. "General Cord, how nice of you to bring your entire battle group to our humble patrol route. Commander Krell attacked me with 8 cruisers and lost. You brought 8 ships and expect different outcome? That's either confidence or stupidity. I'm curious which." Cord's expression darkened, but his voice remained controlled. "Krell underestimated you. Made assumptions about Terran capabilities that proved false. I will not make the same mistake. I have studied the battle logs recovered from the surviving vessel. Your tactics were brilliant, but crude, the work of talented commander discovering new principles through desperation, rather than training." His eyes narrowed. "But intelligence suggests you have acquired new tactical advisor. Alien entity of unknown origin with demonstrated military competence. Perhaps that entity is responsible for Krell's defeat. Through the Force," Vader felt. Kirk's calculation, the captain considering whether to claim sole credit or acknowledge Vader's role. Pride warred with tactical honesty. Finally, Kirk made the smart choice. "General, allow me to introduce Lord Darth Vader, Supreme Commander of Imperial Forces from the Galactic Empire. He's been teaching my crew how real military professionals conduct warfare. The tactics that destroyed Krell were his. The tactics that will destroy you are also his. If you wish to preserve Klingon honor, I suggest you withdraw before you join Krell and whatever warrior afterlife you believe awaits." Cord leaned forward, his expression shifting from controlled fury to genuine interest. "The alien. I wish to see this tactical genius who believes he can defeat 8 warships with one. Show yourself, Vader of the Galactic Empire." Vader moved into viewscreen range, his armored form filling the display with mechanical menace. His respirators cycled with rhythmic finality that somehow conveyed contempt without words. Through the Force, he reached out. Sensing Cord's intent, the Klingon general was genuinely curious, assessing this unknown factor, calculating whether the rumors were accurate or Terran propaganda. "General Cord." Vader's voice emerged with dark authority that made even Klingon pride hesitate. "Your Commander Krell was competent. Warrior who executed sound tactics against numerical disadvantage. He failed because he followed predictable doctrine against opponent who anticipated every move. You make same mistake now, approaching with overwhelming force, expecting standard Terran defensive response, planning to crush us through superior numbers and firepower. But I am not standard Terran commander, and you are about to learn why the Galactic Empire conquered 1,000 star systems using tactics your culture has never witnessed." Cord studied Vader for 5 seconds that stretched like drawn blades. Bold words for someone commanding single vessel against battle group. "I respect confidence, alien. But confidence without capability is merely arrogance. Commander Krell died because he underestimated you. I will not. I offer you this choice: surrender the Enterprise. Accept ritual combat to satisfy blood debt. And perhaps you and your crew will die with honor. Refuse, and I will destroy your ship so thoroughly that not even debris remains for funeral rites." "Counterproposal," Vader replied, his tone carrying dark amusement that sent chills through even the Enterprise crew who'd grown accustomed to his presence. "You withdraw your battle group. Acknowledge that your blood feud is tactical liability your High Council cannot afford, and report to your superiors that continuing hostilities against the Enterprise will result in systematic destruction of every vessel they send. This preserves Klingon honor. You faced impossible odds and chose strategic withdrawal over pointless sacrifice. Everyone survives. Empires avoid costly conflict. Logic prevails." Cord's expression cycled through shock, fury, and something that might have been grudging. Respect before settling on cold determination. "You offer me retreat? After we hunted you for 4 days? After bringing 8 ships specifically to avenge Krell's death? Your proposal insults everything the Klingon Defense Force represents. We do not retreat. We do not surrender. We fight until victory or death. There is no third option." "Then you choose death," Vader stated with mechanical finality. "Captain Kirk, in transmission. General Cord has made his decision. We will accommodate it." Kirk smiled, making the gesture that terminated communications. The view screen returned to tactical display showing 8 Klingon vessels in perfect attack formation. Weapons charged, shields at maximum. Completely committed to battle that would determine whether Kirk's career ended in glory or catastrophe. All hands, red alert, Kirk commanded, his voice carrying throughout the ship. Battle stations. This is not drill. We are outnumbered 8-1 against Klingon blood feud battle group. Command expects us to either die spectacularly or win impossibly. I vote for the latter. All stations report readiness. The bridge crew responded with synchronous efficiency. Days of tactical simulations had transformed competent officers into extensions of a single military consciousness. Engineering confirmed warp drive at maximum readiness. Weapons reported all photon torpedo bays loaded in phaser. Banks charged to full power. Shields were configured in the asymmetric patterns Vader had designed specifically for this engagement. And at helm, Sulu's hands rested on controls with the steady confidence of someone who'd executed these maneuvers 100 times in simulation and was ready to prove they worked in reality. Lord Vader, Kirk said quietly, the ship is yours. Show me why the Emperor should fear you more than the Klingon do. Vader stepped to the center of the bridge, his presence filling the space with dark authority. Through the Force, he felt the entire engagement. Simultaneously, the Klingon vessels, positioning for coordinated strike. Their commanders communicating through encrypted channels. Their weapons targeting the Enterprise with overlapping fields of fire designed to prevent escape. It was perfect setup for conventional victory through overwhelming force. But Vader had spent 2 decades defeating conventional tactics through unconventional brilliance. Helm, execute attack pattern Vader Sigma, he commanded. Engineering, prepare for emergency power transfer on my mark. Tactical, arm photon torpedoes configuration Delta 7. Science, deploy graviton pulse exactly as rehearsed. All departments. This will be violent, rapid, and will test systems beyond safety margins. Maintain discipline. Trust your training. We begin in 30 seconds. Klingon vessels are advancing, Sevek reported. They're tightening formation, preparing for coordinated barrage. Estimated time to weapons range, 45 seconds. They're moving precisely as you predicted, Lord Vader. Because Cord is excellent commander, executing excellent doctrine against tactics he has encountered previously. Vader replied. He does not know we are about to introduce variables his culture has never considered. His mask tilted toward Kirk. Captain, you should sit. This will be aggressive. Kirk dropped into his command chair, gripping the armrests. I've survived your aggressive before. Give them hell, Lord Vader. Hell is insufficient description, Vader stated. Hell implies familiar torment. They are about to experience something new entirely. The Enterprise surged forward at full impulse, accelerating directly toward the Klingon formation in apparent suicidal charge. On the view screen, 8 warships adjusted their targeting solutions, disruptors glowing with lethal anticipation. Photon torpedo tubes tracking the incoming vessel. Cord's voice echoed across combat frequencies with satisfaction. The Terrans were doing exactly what Klingon honor demanded, charging into glorious battle against impossible odds. Klingon vessels firing, Sevek announced. Full barrage, all ships. 48 disruptor beams and 32 photon torpedoes inbound. Impact in 7 seconds. Spock, graviton pulse now, Vader commanded. The Enterprise unleashed gravitational wave that rippled outward from specially configured deflector. Dish, not a weapon, but a distortion field that bent space-time fractionally along precisely calculated vectors. 48 disruptor beams encountered gravitational lensing that bent their trajectories by millimeters, which at combat velocities translated to meters, then tens of meters. 32 photon torpedoes followed guidance. Systems designed for straight line physics and found themselves traveling through curved space that made their targeting solutions obsolete. The barrage that should have vaporized the Enterprise instead scattered across empty space like storm dispersed by hurricane winds. Impossible. Cord's voice roared across open channels. What did they? Helm, execute Sigma 1, Vader interrupted. The Enterprise rolled 90 degrees while simultaneously activating full warp drive for exactly 1.7 seconds. Not long enough to escape the battle, but sufficient to cross 3,000 kilometers in an eye blink and emerge behind the Klingon formation's port flank. Sulu's hands danced across controls with fencer's precision, killing warp drive and rotating the ship to bring weapons to bear before the Klingon could comprehend what had happened. Fire torpedoes, full spread, target the two battleships, Vader commanded. Phasers, continuous fire on the three nearest cruisers. Engineering, transfer all auxiliary power to forward shields. They will return fire within seconds. The Enterprise's weapons erupted with coordinated fury. 6 photon torpedoes streaked towards battleships, massive vessels with powerful shields, but also larger target profiles and slower maneuverability. The first battleship's shields flared as 3 torpedoes impacted in rapid succession. The fourth and fifth, penetrating weakened defenses to detonate against the hull's engineering section. The second battleship managed to rotate shields in time to absorb 2 torpedoes. But Sevek's targeting had been precise. The explosions occurred at the vessel's shield generator nodes, creating cascade failure that left the battleship's port side exposed. Simultaneously, phaser beams carved through space in brilliant blue-white lances, striking 3 Klingon cruisers that were still trying to comprehend how the Enterprise had appeared behind them. One cruiser's shields collapsed entirely under sustained fire. The second lost its port disruptor banks in a chain of secondary explosions. The third managed to raise shields in time, but took damage across its command section. Klingon formation is breaking, Spock reported with Vulcan satisfaction. They're attempting to reorient, but their attack vectors assumed we would maintain position. They cannot bring coordinated fire to bear without risking hitting each other. Exactly as planned, Vader confirmed. Helm, attack pattern Sigma 2. Keep moving. Never give them stable target. Make them chase us through their own formation. The Enterprise dove through the scattered Klingon battle group like raptor hunting through flock of larger birds. Sulu executed maneuvers that would have been impossible without the tactical simulations, banking at impossible angles, using momentum from one vector to redirect into another, making the starship dance through space with agility that physics said shouldn't work for a vessel of its mass. Behind them, Klingon warships attempted to pursue, firing when they had clear shots, but every time they acquired targeting locks, the Enterprise was already somewhere else. This is insane. McCoy's voice echoed from sickbay over the intercom. We just pulled 7GS in a turn that should have torn the ship apart. Half my medical staff is unconscious from inertial forces the dampeners can't fully compensate. Noted, Doctor, Kirk replied, his knuckles white on the armrests as the Enterprise executed another impossible maneuver. Add it to the list of things to complain about after we win. If we win, McCoy corrected. I'm starting a betting pool on whether we die from Klingon disruptors or from Lord Vader's tactics, rupturing our hull through structural stress. Vader ignored the commentary, his focus absolute. Through the Force, he felt the battle's rhythm, chords growing, frustration as his carefully planned assault dissolved into chaos. The other Klingon commanders, uncertainty as they tried to adapt to tactics they'd never encountered. The Enterprise crew's mixture of terror and exhilaration as they realized they might actually survive this. Tactical, Vader commanded, target the damaged battleship. All weapons, concentrated fire on its exposed port section. Engineering, prepare for warp jump. Warp jump, Spock's eyebrow climbed. In the middle of combat engagement, at these velocities and distances, we could materialize inside a Klingon vessel or trigger warp core cascade. I am aware of the risks, Commander, Vader interrupted. I am also aware that conventional tactics against this force will eventually result in our shields collapsing under sustained fire. We must eliminate their capital ships before they reorganize. Helm, program jump coordinates, 2,000 kilometers directly behind the damaged battleship. Emergence orientation that brings our weapons to bear on its engineering section. Sulu's fingers flew across controls, his combat training warring with self-preservation instincts. Coordinates programmed. But Lord Vader, At these ranges, the margin for error is measured in microseconds. If we're off by even, you will not be off, Vader stated with absolute certainty. You have trained for this maneuver 137 times. You know the timing, the calculations, the feel of the ship's response. Trust your training, Lieutenant. Execute on my mark. The Enterprise rolled again, evading disruptor fire from 3 pursuing cruisers. Cord's battleship loomed on the view screen, its damaged port section, exposing structural weaknesses that conventional tactics couldn't exploit without sustained close-range bombardment. But Vader's tactics were anything but conventional. All weapons locked on target, Sevek confirmed. Photon torpedoes armed. Phasers charged. Warp drive ready for jump. Through the Force, Vader felt the precise moment, the instant when the Klingon battleship's shield cycled, when its command crew focused on targeting the Enterprise's current position, when every factor aligned for perfect execution. He extended his hand, feeling reality's fabric through the Force, sensing the exact coordinates where the ship needed to be. Mark, Vader commanded. Reality lurched sideways as the Enterprise engaged. Warp drive for 1.3 seconds and emerged directly behind Cord's damaged battleship at point-blank range. Weapons fired before the Klingon could comprehend what had happened. Photon torpedoes, streaking across 2 kilometers in the time it took a human heart to beat once. Phaser beams cutting through exposed hull plating with surgical precision. The battleship's warp core detonated in an expanding sphere of plasma that consumed the vessel in seconds. The shockwave caught 2 nearby Klingon cruisers that had been attempting to support their flagship, their shields flaring and collapsing under forces they weren't designed to withstand. One cruiser tumbled out of control, life support failing, emergency systems screaming. The second maintained position, but with shields at 14% and weapons offline. Klingon battle group status, Kirk demanded, his voice tight with adrenaline. 1 battleship destroyed. 2nd battleship heavily damaged with shields at 47%. Sevek reported with clinical precision that barely masked his awe. 2 cruisers destroyed. 3 cruisers damaged with combat effectiveness reduced by 60% average. 1 cruiser maintaining full combat capability but retreating to support General Cord's remaining battleship. Klingon formation has completely collapsed. They're attempting defensive positioning around Cord's vessel. Defensive positioning, Kirk repeated with savage satisfaction. They came here to hunt us, and now they're defending? That's what I call tactical reversal. It is merely Phase 1, Vader corrected. Cord is regrouping around his remaining capital ship, consolidating what forces remain combat effective. He will attempt one final assault. All remaining vessels in coordinated strike, accepting losses to ensure our destruction. Klingon honor demands it. He cannot retreat after declaring blood feud. He will fight to the death. Then let's accommodate him, Kirk said, standing with renewed energy. Spock, damage report on the Enterprise. Shields at 61% and regenerating. Minor hull damage to decks 9 and 14 from glancing disruptor hits. Warp drive operating within acceptable parameters despite the tactical jumps. Though Chief Engineer Scott requests we stop doing that unless absolutely necessary. Weapons at 87% capacity. Casualty reports show 32 injured, no deaths. We are combat effective, Captain. Kirk turned to Vader, his expression carrying respect that transcended Terran politics or pride. We just destroyed or disabled 5 ships out of 8-ship battle group, and we're still at 61% shields. That's not victory yet, but it's the most lopsided engagement I've ever commanded. Your tactics are revolutionary, Lord Vader, literally unlike anything in Starfleet combat doctrine. Because Starfleet combat doctrine is built on assumptions of symmetric warfare, Vader replied. Ship against ship, formation against formation. Tactics refined through centuries of predictable engagement parameters. The Galactic Empire learned that predictability is vulnerability. We developed tactics that broke enemy expectations, warp reversals, graviton manipulation, strike-and-fade maneuvers that treated battleships like fighters. Your technology permits these tactics, but your culture never imagined them. That is about to change. Klingon vessels are repositioning, Sevek interrupted. General Cord's battleship taking Central position with 4 remaining cruisers arranged in defensive sphere. They're charging weapons and shields to maximum. Energy readings suggest they're preparing to overload their reactors. Suicide. Attack configuration. They intend to close distance, absorb our fire, and detonate their warp cores at point-blank range. Honorable, Vader observed, but tactically unsound against opponents who can manipulate space-time. They think in terms of dying gloriously. We think in terms of winning efficiently. Captain Kirk, I recommend we end this battle with demonstration that ensures Klingon high. Council thinks very carefully before declaring another blood feud against the Enterprise. Kirk's smile became something predatory and absolutely committed. What did you have in mind? Through the Force, Vader felt the currents of battle shifting toward conclusion. Kord's desperate final assault was predictable, brave, honorable, and ultimately futile against tactics the Klingon culture hadn't developed defenses for. But victory alone was insufficient. The Emperor watched. Section 31 assessed. The Klingon High Council would analyze. This moment required not just triumph, but legend. We destroy them, Vader said quietly, his respirator's mechanical rhythm somehow conveying dark finality. All remaining vessels, simultaneously, with such overwhelming precision that witnesses cannot explain what they saw. We make this battle the story Klingon tell their warriors as cautionary tale. The day General Kord's blood feud battle group encountered enemy they could not comprehend and died without landing significant blow. Fear will prevent future blood feuds more effectively than diplomacy ever could. I like the way you think, Kirk replied. Extremely violent, utterly ruthless, and strategically brilliant. Very Terran. Very Sith, I assume. The Sith understand that power demonstrated is power multiplied. Vader confirmed. One victory forgotten is wasted effort. One victory transformed into legend shapes behavior of entire civilizations. The Klingon High Council will remember that declaring blood feud against the Enterprise resulted in systematic destruction of their finest battle group. They will reconsider future challenges. Your Emperor will see that I provide value beyond mere tactical advice. I reshape strategic landscape through demonstration of overwhelming capability. And Section 31. Spock asked quietly. Section 31 will conclude that I am too valuable to eliminate and too dangerous to control, Vader replied. Therefore, accommodation becomes their only logical option, which is exactly what I told Commander Rand would occur. I keep my promises, Commander Spock. Both threats and alliances. Kirk moved to his command chair, settling in with the comfortable readiness of someone about to commit beautiful violence. All hands, prepare for final engagement. Lord Vader, show General Kord what happens when Klingon honor meets Sith precision. Make it spectacular. Vader's respirator cycled with dark satisfaction. Spectacular is merely beginning, Captain. This will be education. On the view screen, General Kord's remaining forces accelerated toward the Enterprise for cruisers and one battleship charging with weapons blazing, shields at maximum, accepting certain death in exchange for chance to destroy their enemy and salvage honor from disaster. They were brave. They were committed. They were warriors who would die with glory rather than live with shame. And they were about to learn that in the universe of Darth Vader, courage and honor were utterly insufficient against power, wielded with perfect precision and absolute ruthlessness. The final phase of the Battle of Kord's vengeance was about to begin, and it would end the way all confrontations with Sith Lords ended, with darkness triumphant and legends born from ashes. The Klingon charge came with the inevitability of an avalanche, 4 cruisers and 1 battleship, accelerating in tight formation, weapons firing continuously, shields flaring as they absorbed return fire. Every meter gained purchased through sacrifice and determination. General Kord's voice roared across combat frequencies in Klingon battle cant, exhorting his warriors to glory, to honor, to death worthy of song. Through the Force, Vader felt their commitment, absolute, unwavering, beautiful in its terrible simplicity. They would die today. They knew it, accepted it, embraced it, and in embracing death, they believed they would take the Enterprise with them into whatever afterlife awaited warriors who fell in righteous battle. They were wrong. Range decreasing, Sevek reported. His Vulcan composure, cracking slightly as 40 disruptor beams and 23 photon torpedoes carved through space toward the Enterprise. Klingon formation maintaining perfect cohesion despite our fire. Their shields are absorbing damage, but they're not slowing. They intend to close to ramming distance. Let them come, Vader commanded. His mechanical breathing, the only sound on the bridge for 3 heartbeats. Helm, maintain current position and orientation. Do not evade. Tactical, continuous fire on lead cruiser. I want its shields weakened but not collapsed. Science, prepare graviton matrix configuration Omega. Engineering, route all auxiliary power to structural integrity fields and prepare for emergency warp burst. Kirk gripped his armrests. Every command instinct screaming to order evasive maneuvers as 5 Klingon warships bore down on his vessel like predators closing for the kill. Lord Vader, they're getting awfully close. If we don't maneuver, we will not maneuver, Vader interrupted, his tone carrying absolute certainty. Trust me, Captain. You wanted spectacular demonstration. I am providing it. Maintain position. 2,000 kilometers, Sevek counted. Klingon weapons fire intensifying. Our forward shields are at 43% and dropping. 1,500 kilometers. Their warp cores are overloading. Confirmed suicide configuration. If they reach us, they will not reach us, Vader stated. Through the Force, he felt the precise moment approaching, the instant when physics, timing, and Klingon determination would collide with Sith manipulation of reality. He extended both hands slightly, invisible power flowing from him into the ship's systems, into the fabric of space-time itself, bending probability and possibility toward the outcome he had foreseen. 1,000 kilometers. Captain, recommend immediate. Execute graviton matrix Omega, Vader commanded. All power to structural integrity. Helm, on my mark, warp burst velocity factor 9.97. Duration 0.4 seconds. Vector directly through their formation. Sulu's hands froze over the controls. Through their formation? At warp 9.97 for 0.4 seconds? Sir, that will take us directly into the center of 5 ships with our shields nearly collapsed. We'll collide with. You will not collide. Vader's voice cut like a blade through durasteel. The graviton matrix will create spatial distortion that pushes their vessels fractionally off vector. Combined with our velocity, we will pass through the gaps between their ships with clearance measured in meters. They will not have time to adjust. Their weapons will be unable to track. And when we emerge on the other side of their formation, they will be perfectly positioned for what comes next. What comes next? Kirk demanded, his voice tight with the tension of watching 5 warships approach at suicidal velocity. Totality, Vader replied simply. 500 kilometers, Commander Spock. Activate graviton matrix now. The Enterprise's deflector dish erupted, with invisible force that warped space-time in precise mathematical patterns. Vader had spent 3 days calculating. Gravitational distortions rippled outward in controlled waves, not strong enough to damage the Klingon vessels, but sufficient to alter their trajectories by fractions of degrees, millimeters at close range. But at combat velocities, those millimeters became meters. 300 kilometers. Sevek's voice carried uncharacteristic alarm. Captain, if this doesn't work. It will work, Kirk said, his faith in Vader's tactical brilliance overriding every survival instinct. Helm, execute warp burst on Lord Vader's mark. Vader felled it through the Force, the perfect alignment of velocity, position, gravitational distortion, and Klingon commitment to their death charge. The instant when 5 vectors intersected with one possibility that defied conventional physics but obeyed the deeper laws the Force manipulated. Mark, Vader commanded. The Enterprise's warp drive engaged at power levels that made Chief Engineer Scott scream protests from engineering. Reality compressed as the ship accelerated to warp 9.97, faster than any Constitution-class vessel had ever attempted in combat, faster than safety protocols permitted, velocity that should have torn the ship apart from structural stress alone. It lasted 0.4 seconds. In that fraction of a heartbeat, the Enterprise crossed 280 kilometers and passed directly through the center of General Cord's formation. The graviton matrix had pushed the Klingon vessels fractionally outward, 2 meters here, 3 meters there, creating gaps that shouldn't exist in a tight battle formation. The Enterprise threaded through those impossible gaps like a needle through fabric. The leading Klingon cruiser missing their port nacelle by 1.7 meters. Cord's battleship passing starboard with clearance of 2.3 meters. The trailing cruisers unable to adjust their vectors in the microseconds available. The Enterprise emerged on the far side of the Klingon formation, moving at velocities that made targeting impossible. The Klingon warships, committed to their charge, passed through the space where the Enterprise had been and found only vacuum. Their weapons fire, pre-targeted for an enemy that no longer existed at those coordinates, carved harmlessly through empty space. Helm, kill warp drive and rotate 180 degrees. Vader commanded before anyone could process what had just happened. Tactical, arm all remaining photon torpedoes. Target each Klingon vessel's warp core. Science, prepare tachyon pulse. Engineering, transfer all power to weapons. We have approximately 2.3 seconds before they realize what occurred and attempt to maneuver. We will use those seconds to end this battle. Sulu's hands flew across controls, with muscle memory earned through endless simulation. The Enterprise killed its warp drive, momentum carrying it forward while thrusters rotated. The ship with impossible speed to bring weapons to bear on the Klingon formation's rear. Sevek's targeting systems locked onto 5 warp cores, the vulnerable hearts of starships that had committed everything to a charge that had failed. All targets locked, Sevek confirmed, his voice carrying something between awe and horror at what he was about to do. Firing solutions optimal. Awaiting order, Lord Vader. Through the Force, Vader felt General Cord's realization, the Klingon commander's warrior mind comprehending, in the instant before death, that he had been outmaneuvered so completely that not even honorable death and glorious combat awaited. Only execution, only demonstration, only the cold efficiency of an enemy who viewed Klingon honor as tactical weakness to be exploited and destroyed. Vader extended his hand toward the view screen, fingers curling into a fist. Fire everything. Simultaneously. Spock, tachyon pulse at moment of impact. The Enterprise's remaining weapons erupted in perfect synchronization. 18 photon torpedoes streaked across 15,000 kilometers in the time it took to draw breath, 3 torpedoes targeting each Klingon vessel's warp core, targeting solutions calculated to strike within nanoseconds of each other. Phaser beams followed microseconds behind, carving paths through weakened shields, ensuring penetration, guaranteeing destruction. The first Klingon cruisers' warp core detonated before its commander could order shields rotated. The second and third died within a heartbeat of the first, their antimatter containment fields collapsing under concentrated fire, unleashing energies equivalent to small stars. General Cord's battleship survived 1 full second. Longer, enough time for the general to transmit final message to Klingon High Command. Words that would become legend among a warrior culture. They are not Terrans. They are demons wearing Terran faces. Avenge us. The transmission ended as 3 photon torpedoes punched through the battleships, weakened aft shields and detonated against the warp core simultaneously. The resulting explosion consumed the vessel in a sphere of plasma that expanded outward, with the fury of controlled fusion, transformed into weapon. And then Spock activated the tachyon pulse. Faster than light particles erupted from the Enterprise's deflector dish in an expanding wave that struck 5 exploding warp cores simultaneously. The tachyons disrupted the antimatter reactions at quantum level, transforming relatively controlled explosions into cascading detonations that fed back through subspace. The effect was catastrophic. Each warp core's explosion amplified by factors that made physics professors weep. Energies bleeding into subspace and back into normal space in feedback loop that consumed debris, radiation, and any hope of survival. When the light faded, nothing remained of General Cord's battle group but expanding plasma clouds and debris fragments too small to identify. 5 warships, representing decades of Klingon military engineering, carrying crews of thousands, commanded by decorated officers who had served with honor, simply ceased to exist, erased from reality by Tactics their culture had never conceived in power. They had never encountered. The Enterprise drifted through the aftermath. Shields at 27%, hull scorched but intact. Systems strained but functional. The bridge crew sat in stunned silence, processing what they had just witnessed. Even Kirk seemed momentarily speechless, staring at the view screen where 8 Klingon warships had been, and now only stellar dust remained. Finally, McCoy's voice crackled over the intercom, slurred slightly with alcohol and shock. Did Lord Vader just thread us through the middle of a Klingon death charge at warp 9.97 and then vaporize all 5 ships in approximately, for seconds, 3.7 seconds? Doctor, Spock corrected, his Vulcan precision somehow making the achievement even more terrifying. From the moment we completed our warp burst to the final tachyon pulse detonation, I have recorded the entire engagement for analysis. Starfleet Command will want detailed breakdown of how we accomplished. He paused, his expression shifting to something that might have been concern. What should have been impossible? Kirk found his voice, though it emerged hoarser than usual. Casualties: 14 injuries from the warp burst maneuver. Captain, Uhura reported, her hands shaking slightly as she compiled damage reports. Chief Engineer Scott reports that if we ever do that again, he'll personally space whoever ordered it. Multiple systems operating beyond safety margins. Warp drive requires immediate maintenance. Shields regenerating, but slowly. Weapons depleted. We are combat ineffective until repairs completed. But we're alive, Kirk said quietly. Against 8-to-1 odds, blood feud battle group. Klingon. Determination to kill us all. We're alive with 14 injuries and 0 deaths. Lord Vader. He turned to face the Dark Lord, his expression cycling through emotions too complex to name. That was the most terrifying, brilliant, absolutely insane tactical display I have ever witnessed. We just destroyed an entire Klingon battle group in less than 4 seconds. The High Council will reconsider declaring blood feuds against vessels. I advise. Vader finished. General Cord transmitted final message before his death. His words will become legend among Klingon warriors, warning that the Enterprise possesses capabilities beyond conventional warfare. Future Klingon commanders will approach this vessel with caution. If they approach at all, that is strategic victory worth more than tactical success. Spock stood, moving to review sensor logs with scientific fascination overriding. Vulcan emotional control. Lord Vader, the graviton matrix. Technique you employed, manipulating space-time to create gaps in their formation while simultaneously using warp velocity to exploit those gaps. That requires understanding of gravimetric physics and timing, precision that borders on precognitive. The margin for error was measured in microseconds. How did you calculate trajectories accurately enough to? I did not calculate, Vader interrupted. I knew. The Force showed me the path. I followed it. Calculation would have taken too long and introduced hesitation. In combat, hesitation is death. Certainty is survival. But you just passed between 5 starships, traveling at relativistic velocities with clearance measured in meters. Spock's voice carried uncharacteristic passion. The slightest miscalculation, the smallest variance in graviton matrix output, and we would have collided at warp velocity. The Enterprise would have been vaporized. You gambled our entire existence on your mystical certainty. No, Vader corrected quietly. I gambled nothing. Gambling implies uncertainty. I acted with knowledge provided by the Force. From my perspective, there was no risk because I saw the outcome before it occurred. You interpret this as faith or mysticism. I understand it as accessing information the universe provides to those trained to perceive it. Kirk moved to stand beside Vader, studying the Dark Lord's mask with something between respect and wariness. You keep saying the Force shows you things, lets you know outcomes before they happen. That's not tactics, Lord Vader. That's precognition. You can see the future. I can see possibilities, Vader clarified. Futures that might occur based on present circumstances and decisions. The stronger one's connection to the Force, the clearer those visions become. I perceived the outcome of this battle days ago when I began planning it. I saw Cord's charge, saw our warp burst through his formation, saw his vessels destroyed. I simply implemented the steps necessary to manifest that vision into reality. Sulu turned in his chair, his expression mixing awe with unease. So when you ordered me to execute that maneuver, threading through 5 ships at warp 9.97, you already knew it would work. Because you'd seen it work in a vision? Correct, Lieutenant. Though vision is an imprecise term. I perceive probability stream with 97% certainty of success. The remaining 3% accounted for variables I could not fully control: equipment failures, crew hesitation, quantum uncertainties inherent to manipulating space-time. But 97% certainty is sufficient for action when the alternative is conventional tactics against superior numbers. 97%. McCoy's voice emerged from the intercom with bitter laugh. So there was 3% chance we'd all die, screaming in warp velocity collision. And you decided those were acceptable odds? That's not command, Lord Vader. That's gambling with our lives. No, Doctor, Kirk interjected before Vader could respond. That's understanding that conventional tactics against Cord's battle group gave us maybe 15% survival chance. Lord Vader saw a path to 97% and took it. The math is brutal but clear. He saved us. Kirk's voice hardened. He also just demonstrated to the Emperor, to Section 31, to Starfleet Command, and to every species in this quadrant that the Enterprise is now the most dangerous vessel in space. We just annihilated 8 Klingon warships with tactics nobody has ever seen. That changes everything. Indeed, Spock agreed, his scientific fascination warring with logical concern. Captain, we must consider the ramifications. Lord Vader's tactics are revolutionary, but they're also dependent on his presence and his force abilities. The graviton matrix manipulations could, theoretically, be replicated by other vessels, but the timing required, the precognitive certainty of when to execute each maneuver, that appears unique to Lord Vader. Which means I've become indispensable, Vader finished. The Emperor cannot afford to eliminate me because my tactical value exceeds my threat potential. Section 31 cannot neutralize me without crippling the Enterprise's combat effectiveness. An enemy species must reconsider engaging vessels. I advise because conventional military doctrine is insufficient against tactics guided by precognition. This is precisely the outcome I intended when I suggested using Cord's blood feud as demonstration. Kirk's smile became something predatory and calculating. You played us. All of us. The Klingon thought they were hunting us. I thought I was using your tactics to win impossible battle. Section 31 thought they were assessing your threat level. But the whole time, you were engineering situation where your survival became essential to the Terran Empire's military superiority. You turned yourself into asset too valuable to eliminate. I turned myself into what I have always been, Vader corrected. Supreme military commander, whose tactical brilliance justifies political accommodation. Emperor Palpatine understood this equation. I was too dangerous to control, but too valuable to eliminate. Therefore, alliance became logical necessity. Your Emperor will reach identical conclusion. I have demonstrated my value through results that cannot be disputed. Now we await his response. As if summoned by Vader's words, Uhura's console erupted with priority signal. Captain, incoming transmission from Earth. Imperial Command. Encryption level Omega 10. That's the Emperor himself. He wants to speak with you directly. The bridge fell silent. Omega 10 encryption meant the transmission came from the Emperor's private chambers, bypassing every level of Starfleet bureaucracy. Whatever the Emperor wanted to say, he wanted it said directly, immediately, and without intermediaries. Kirk straightened his uniform with deliberate care, composing his expression into something approaching respectful confidence. Put it through, Commander, and record everything. I want documentation of this conversation. The view screen shifted from stellar debris field to the imposing figure of the Terran Emperor. He wore robes that managed to convey absolute power through simplicity, his face bearing the scars and hardness of someone who'd clawed his way to ultimate authority and maintained it through decades of ruthless efficiency. His eyes held the particular coldness of men who'd ordered millions dead and considered it necessary statecraft. Captain Kirk, the Emperor's voice carried across subspace, with weight that made gravitational forces seem trivial. Congratulations on your recent victory. General Cord was one of the Klingon Empire's finest commanders, and you just erased his entire battle group from existence. Impressive. Terrifying. Exactly. The kind of capability the Terran Empire values. Thank you, Your Imperial Majesty. Kirk replied with careful deference. Though I must acknowledge that Lord Vader's tactical guidance was instrumental in. I'm aware, the Emperor interrupted. I've reviewed the battle logs. Reviewed Commander Rand's Section 31 assessment. Reviewed every report concerning Miss Darth Vader from the moment he materialized on your transporter pad. And I've reached a conclusion I want to communicate directly to him. Is the Dark Lord available? Kirk gestured, and Vader moved into viewscreen range. The two absolute authorities, one ruling an interstellar empire through political manipulation and military force, the other having served an emperor who'd conquered a galaxy, regarded each other across subspace, with the mutual recognition of predators assessing competition. Lord Vader, the Emperor said, his tone shifting to something more cautious. You've made quite an impression in your brief time aboard the Enterprise. Destroyed Klingon forces, outsmarted Romulan surveillance, demonstrated tactical capabilities that could revolutionize our military doctrine, and politely told Section 31 that you'd kill anyone who attempted to neutralize you. That's either remarkable confidence or suicidal arrogance. I'm curious which. Neither, Emperor, Vader replied, his respirator's mechanical rhythm somehow conveying dark respect. It is accurate assessment of capability. I am Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, Supreme Commander of. The transmission ended before anyone could respond. The view screen returned to displaying stellar debris and the lingering plasma clouds that marked where General Cord's honor had died screaming. Kirk sank into his command chair, processing the conversation's implications. I just got promoted for letting an alien Dark Lord take over tactical operations of my ship. The Emperor just granted you carte blanche to revolutionize Imperial military doctrine. And Commander Rand gets to spy on both of us permanently. That's exactly what I predicted would occur, Vader finished. The Emperor recognized my value, acknowledged he cannot control me, and chose accommodation over confrontation. Section 31 receives permanent monitoring capability to ensure I remain asset rather than threat. You receive promotion and autonomy to implement my tactics. Everyone benefits from arrangement structured around mutual interest rather than hierarchical command. This is how empires function when led by competent administrators. Competent administrators, McCoy muttered over the intercom. That's one way to describe tyrants dividing spoils. Another way is to call it what it is, two predators, agreeing not to kill each other, because it's more profitable to hunt together. An accurate assessment, Dr. Vader agreed. Welcome to Imperial politics. It is brutal, efficient, and rewards those who understand. That power shared strategically is power multiplied. Emperor Palpatine taught me these principles. Your Emperor demonstrates he understands them equally well. Spock approached Vader, his expression carrying scientific curiosity that transcended political implications. Lord Vader, you structured this entire scenario, from the Klingon blood feud to the battle's execution to the Emperor's response, to establish yourself as indispensable asset within the Terran Empire's power structure. That requires not just tactical brilliance, but political sophistication and long-term strategic planning. You claim to serve no master, yet you've just maneuvered yourself into position where the Empire cannot afford to lose you. That seems contradictory to your stated goal of returning to your own universe. Vader's mask tilted toward Spock, his respirator cycling with what might have been dark amusement. Commander Spock, I intend to return home. But I also recognize that dimensional travel research may require months or years. During that time, I must survive in your universe, which means establishing position of strength sufficient to deter threats while maintaining access to resources I need. Today's demonstration accomplished both objectives. I am now protected asset with Imperial resources at my disposal, and if research proves impossible, if I remain trapped here indefinitely, his tone hardened with dark certainty, then I have established foundation for something greater. An empire within an empire. Authority earned through demonstrated superiority rather than assassination or betrayal. The Terran Empire functions through chaos. I have shown them order. They will either adapt my principles or watch as those who do dominate those who do not. You're planning to transform the Terran Empire, Kirk said quietly, realization dawning. You're not just advising. You're positioning yourself to reshape our entire military culture according to your Imperial model. That's not tactical consultation. That's cultural revolution. That is survival, Vader corrected. I adapt to circumstances while shaping them toward favorable outcomes. If I return home tomorrow, the Terran Empire benefits from improved tactics and loses nothing. If I remain here indefinitely, I will not spend eternity as mere advisor. I will command. I will rule. I will transform your chaotic empire into something approaching the Galactic Empire's efficiency. Not through conquest, Commander Spock, but through demonstration of superior methodology. That makes adoption inevitable. He turned toward the viewport, staring at the debris field that had been 8 Klingon warships. General Cord died today not because he was incompetent, but because his entire tactical framework was obsolete against opponent who thought differently. The same principle applies to governance. Your empire's chaotic advancement through assassination model is obsolete. I offer alternative. Those who embrace it will prosper. Those who resist will fall. This is not tyranny. This is evolution. The bridge fell silent as the implications settled like lead weight. Vader had just articulated plan to fundamentally transform the Terran Empire from within, using tactical brilliance as demonstration of superior principles that would eventually reshape political and military culture across human space. It was audacious, dangerous, and given what they'd just witnessed, possibly achievable. You're terrifying, Uhura said softly, her voice carrying awe and unease in equal measure. Absolutely, genuinely terrifying. Not because of your power, though. That's certainly frightening. But because you see politics and warfare as the same thing. Everything is tactical positioning. Every conversation is negotiation. Every demonstration is strategic messaging. You don't just fight battles. You architect outcomes spanning years. That is what it means to be Sith Lord, Vader replied simply. The Jedi fought for peace and lost because they could not see beyond immediate conflicts. The Sith plan across generations, manipulating galactic politics through patience and strategic positioning. Emperor Palpatine spent 1,000 years as a lineage of Sith Lords, each building on the previous generation's work, until finally the moment came to destroy the Jedi and seize control. I learned from his example. I think in terms of decades, not days. Today's battle was merely opening move in campaign that may span years. But it was necessary move, and it succeeded perfectly. Kirk stood, moving to face Vader directly. I should probably be terrified that you're planning to transform my empire from within. And part of me is. But another part recognizes that you're right. The Terran Empire's constant internal warfare is inefficient. We waste resources on assassinations that could be directed toward external threats. We lose talented officers to political games rather than combat experience. If your model reduces that waste, while making us militarily superior, he extended his hand. Then I'm willing to take the risk. Welcome to the long game. Lord Vader, let's see if you can reshape an empire before you find your way home. Vader grasped Kirk's hand, mechanical strength carefully controlled to avoid crushing bones. Captain Kirk, Commodore. Kirk, you have wisdom rare among commanders who achieve power through violence. You recognize that true strength comes not from holding power absolutely but from wielding it strategically. The Terran Empire is fortunate to have officers like you. Together, we will show them what order through strength achieves compared to chaos through fear. The handshake held for 3 seconds. Alliance forged through shared victory and mutual recognition that they'd just altered the trajectory of an empire. Then Vader released Kirk's hand and turned toward the viewport, his black form silhouetted against stars and debris. Behind him, the Enterprise's bridge crew processed the reality of what had just occurred. They'd won an impossible battle. They'd caught the Emperor's attention. They'd forged alliance with a being who planned to reshape their civilization. And in the cold mathematics of imperial politics, they'd just become either the most successful or most doomed crew in Starfleet history. Time would determine which. But Darth Vader had learned patience across decades of service to Emperor Palpatine. He could wait, could plan, could build foundation for transformation that would outlast his presence in this universe. And if he never found the means to return home, then the Terran Empire would learn what it meant when a Sith Lord turned their darkness into order, their chaos into discipline, and their brutal efficiency into something approaching the perfection of the Galactic Empire. The dark side had found new universe to corrupt, or perhaps to perfect. The distinction, Vader reflected, was merely perspective. 3 months after the Battle of Kord's Vengeance, the ISS Enterprise docked at Earth Space Dock for the first time since Vader's arrival. The massive orbital facility orbited humanity's homeworld like a steel crown, symbol of the Terran Empire's reach, its power, and its absolute dominion over the species that had crawled from a single planet to conquer dozens of worlds. Within 2 centuries, Vader stood at the viewport in his assigned quarters, watching Earth rotate beneath him with mechanical stillness that concealed profound calculation. Through the Force, he felt the planet below, 8 billion human minds burning with ambition, hatred, fear, and desperate hunger for advancement. It was different from Imperial Center, where Palpatine's presence dominated, everything like a dark sun around, which all others orbited. Here, power was fractured, distributed, contested. The Emperor ruled from governmental complexes in what was once called San Francisco, but his authority was constantly tested by admirals, generals, senators, and corporate magnates who believed themselves strong enough to challenge the throne. It was chaos, and chaos, Vader had learned, presented opportunity. Lord Vader, Commander Rand's voice, emerged from the doorcom with professional courtesy that barely masked. Section 31's perpetual surveillance. The Emperor has summoned you to Imperial Command. Transport leaves in 20 minutes. I'm required to escort you. Acknowledged, Commander, Vader replied, turning from the viewport. 3 months of working alongside Rand had established professional respect, if not trust. She reported his every action to Section 31. He acknowledged her surveillance openly, and both recognized the arrangement as necessary. Fiction that prevented violent confrontation. I will be ready. His quarters aboard the Enterprise had expanded significantly since that first cell-like room. Now he occupied an entire section of Deck 5, tactical planning chambers, meditation space, technical workshop where he'd begun adapting his lightsabers, power cell to interface with Federation, energy systems, and personal quarters that approached the austere comfort of his chambers aboard the Executor. The Terran Empire had provided resources generously, recognizing that keeping Vader satisfied was cheaper than containing Vader hostile. Kirk had thrived under the new arrangement, promoted to Commodore, granted autonomy to implement Vader's tactical innovations, and freed from constant fear of assassination by subordinates, who now advanced through competence demonstrations rather than murder. He'd become one of the Empire's most effective commanders. The Enterprise had engaged Romulan forces twice, Klingon raiders once, and a species called the Tholians whose crystalline ships proved vulnerable to graviton matrix manipulation. Every engagement ended in decisive victory. Every victory reinforced Vader's indispensability. But Vader understood that demonstration was merely foundation. Transformation required something deeper, restructuring the Empire's military culture from within, creating framework where order replaced chaos, where discipline superseded assassination, where power flowed from competence rather than treachery. It would take years, decades, perhaps, but Vader had waited 2 decades serving Palpatine's vision. He could wait longer for his own. The shuttle departed from Enterprise's hangar bay with Vader, Rand, and 2 Section 31 operatives who pretended to be honor guard while actually serving as emergency containment if the Dark Lord needed neutralizing. Vader found their presence amusing. He could kill all 4 occupants with a thought, yet they maintained the fiction of control. Perhaps that was the Terran Empire's greatest weakness. They believed technology and numbers could constrain any threat. They had never faced the Force. Earth grew larger in the viewport as the shuttle descended through orbital traffic toward Imperial Command, a massive complex that sprawled across kilometers of what had once been San Francisco Bay, now drained and converted into Fortress City where the Empire's administration functioned. Defensive satellites tracked their approach with targeting solutions that would vaporize unauthorized vessels in microseconds. Planetary shields could repel orbital bombardment. And somewhere in those fortified towers, the Emperor sat on his throne, calculating how to exploit or eliminate the most dangerous asset his empire had ever acquired. Nervous, Rand asked quietly as the shuttle entered atmospheric approach. No, Vader replied truthfully. Curious. Your Emperor is intelligent, ruthless, and politically sophisticated. He invited me to his center of power, which suggests either confidence in his defenses or desire to demonstrate his authority. I am interested to see which. Both, probably. Rand said with dark humor that had emerged during their months of forced cooperation. The Emperor doesn't do single-purpose anything. If he summons you personally, it's because he wants to assess you in his territory, show you the Empire's full power, and negotiate something he can't trust to intermediaries. Section 31 believes he's going to offer you formal military commission, admiral rank, possibly, command of Tactical Innovation Division with authority to restructure combat doctrine fleet-wide. Vader's mask tilted fractionally. And Section 31's recommendation regarding such offer? Accepted, Rand replied bluntly. You want resources and authority. The Emperor wants your tactical brilliance institutionalized across the fleet. Everyone benefits from arrangement that formalizes your role. The alternative is you remain independent asset without official authority, which makes Imperial bureaucracy resistant to implementing your innovations. Better to work within system than constantly circumvent it. Commander Rand, that is surprisingly practical advice from organization that tried to kill me 3 months ago. We tried to assess whether we could kill you, Rand corrected. There's a difference. Assessment concluded that neutralizing you would require resources exceeding your threat potential. Therefore, accommodation became logical option. Section 31 is many things, Lord Vader, but we're not stupid. You've made yourself too valuable to eliminate. Now the question becomes how to maximize your value while minimizing your danger. Official commission with defined authority accomplishes both. The shuttle settled onto landing platform with hydraulic precision. Through the viewport, Vader observed the assembled honor guard, 50 Imperial soldiers in dress uniform, weapons shouldered in ceremonial formation, flanking a path that led toward the towering entrance of Imperial Command. It was designed to intimidate, to make visitors feel small against the Empire's grandeur. Vader had seen similar displays 1,000 times aboard Star Destroyers and Imperial facilities. It was impressive. It was also insufficient to concern. A Sith Lord who'd walked the halls of the Emperor's throne room on Coruscant, where the dark side itself seemed to seep from the walls. Commodore Kirk sends his regards, Rand added as the shuttle's ramp descended. He wanted you to know that he's submitted formal recommendations, that you receive full command authority, equivalent to Fleet Admiral, with the Enterprise designated as your flagship. He's also recommended that your tactical training protocols be implemented across all capital ships immediately. The Emperor has Kirk's recommendations under review. Kirk demonstrates loyalty, Vader observed. That is rare quality in the Terran Empire. It should be rewarded. It will be, Rand said quietly, if you accept the commission, if you formalize your role within Imperial structure. But if you refuse, if you insist on remaining independent, Kirk's recommendations become irrelevant. The bureaucracy will resist external authority regardless of effectiveness. That's how empires function. Lord Vader. Structure and hierarchy matter as much as capability. They descended the ramp into Earth's atmosphere, breathable without assistance. Gravity within human norms. Temperature controlled by environmental systems that moderated the entire complex. The honor guard snapped to attention with mechanical precision as Vader passed. Their discipline impressive by any military standard. At the formation's head stood an admiral whose uniform bore enough decorations to fund a small fleet, his expression carefully neutral as he saluted. Lord Vader, on behalf of the Terran Empire and His Imperial Majesty, welcome to Earth. I am Admiral Marcus, Chief of Starfleet Operations. The Emperor awaits you in the Tower of Command. If you'll follow me. Vader inclined his head fractionally, acknowledgement, without subservience, and followed Admiral Marcus through corridors that managed to convey both military efficiency and imperial grandeur. Officers passed in constant flow, each wearing sidearms, each watching each other with the perpetual wariness of predators coexisting in crowded space. Assassinations might be less frequent under the Emperor's direct observation, but the culture of fear-based advancement remained. They ascended through security checkpoints that scanned for weapons, explosives, biological threats, and energy signatures. Vader's lightsaber triggered alerts at every level until Admiral Marcus overrode protocols with authorization, codes that suggested the Emperor had specifically permitted Vader to retain his weapon. Interesting. Either confidence or trap. Finally, they reached the tower's apex, a circular chamber dominated by viewports that overlooked the entire Imperial Command complex and, beyond it, the sprawling urban landscape that had once been called San Francisco. The Emperor stood at the central viewport, hands clasped behind his back, silhouetted against Earth's horizon. He did not turn as Vader entered. Lord Vader, the Emperor said without preamble, 3 months ago, you appeared aboard one of my vessels and proceeded to revolutionize combat doctrine, destroy enemy forces with impossible efficiency, and politely inform me that you would not be controlled. Since then, you've trained the Enterprise crew into the most effective combat unit in my fleet, developed tactical innovations that have won 6 engagements with 0 friendly casualties, and demonstrated strategic planning that borders on precognitive. Admiral Marcus, you're dismissed. Commander Rand, you as well. I wish to speak with Lord Vader privately. Marcus and Rand exchanged glances, being dismissed from the Emperor's presence was either honor or death, sentenced depending on context, but obeyed with military precision. The doors sealed with hydraulic finality, leaving Vader alone with the most powerful human in this universe. The Emperor turned, his scarred face carrying expression of calculating interest. You're wondering if this is assassination attempt. Secret kill room where Section 31 has hidden weapons. Neural disruptors, perhaps orbital strike coordinates locked on this location. You're analyzing escape routes, considering whether your force abilities can penetrate the tower's shielding, calculating whether you could kill me before security responds. Yes, Vader confirmed simply. Those are logical concerns when meeting absolute authority alone. The Emperor smiled, genuine expression that carried dark humor. I appreciate honesty. No, Lord Vader, this is not assassination attempt. If I wanted you dead, I'd have tried during the 3 months you've been aboard the Enterprise. Section 31 has developed 17 scenarios for neutralizing you, each more creative than the last. But every simulation ends the same way. Either you survive and kill everyone involved, or you die and we lose tactical capabilities that have made the Enterprise unstoppable. Cost-benefit analysis favors keeping you alive. So here we are, two men who understand power, discussing how to structure empire. Vader moved to stand beside the Emperor at the viewport, both men staring out at humanity's homeworld. You summoned me for negotiation. What are your terms? Direct. I like that. The Emperor gestured toward Earth below. 8 billion humans on this planet alone. Tens of billions across the Empire. All competing for advancement, all hungry for power, all willing to kill each other for promotions and status. It's chaotic, brutal, and it works. We've built interstellar empire in 2 centuries through that chaos. But it's also inefficient. We lose talented officers to political assassination. We waste resources on internal conflicts. And we face external threats, Klingon, Romulans, species beyond our borders, who don't care about our internal politics. They only care about whether we're strong enough to defeat. You show me alternative model. Order through demonstrated competence. Advancement through merit. Discipline enforced not through fear, but through recognition. That following superior tactics leads to survival. I want that model implemented across my fleet. At what cost? Vader asked. What authority do I receive? What constraints do you impose? The Emperor pulled data pad from his robes, activating holographic display that showed organizational chart of terrifying complexity. Starfleet Command, Section 31. Intelligence divisions, fleet deployments, research facilities, all interconnected through hierarchy. That placed the Emperor at the apex and radiated downward through countless layers of bureaucracy. I'm creating new position, the Emperor said, manipulating the display. Grand Admiral of Tactical Innovation. You'll have authority equivalent to Chief of Starfleet Operations, Admiral. Marcus's position, but focus specifically on developing and implementing advanced combat doctrine. You'll command Tactical Research Division, have access to Empire's finest engineers and scientists, and possess authority to implement your training protocols across any vessel you designate. You'll answer directly to me, bypassing conventional chain of command. Section 31 will monitor, but not interfere unless you demonstrate threat to imperial security. And you'll receive resources for your dimensional travel research, scientists, facilities, unlimited funding. Vader studied the organizational chart with professional interest. The position was real authority, not ceremonial title. He would command hundreds of officers, influence thousands of combat engagements, reshape military culture across the entire Terran Empire. It was exactly what he needed to implement transformation he'd envisioned. It was also trap. And the constraints? Vader pressed. What prevents me from using this? Authority to build. Power base independent of your control. What stops me from training loyal officers, securing fleet resources, and eventually challenging your throne? The Emperor's smile widened with genuine pleasure. Nothing stops you, Lord Vader. That's the beauty of this arrangement. If you successfully build power base sufficient to challenge me, then you've proven yourself more capable than I am. At which point, the Empire would be better served with you on the throne than me. I'm not afraid of competent subordinates seizing power. I'm afraid of incompetent subordinates destroying what I've built through mediocrity and cowardice. You're many things, but you're not mediocre. If you overthrow me, it will be because you've earned that authority through demonstrated superiority. That's how the Terran Empire functions. Power flows to those strong enough to claim it. Through the Force, Vader felt the Emperor's sincerity. The man actually believed what he said, actually structured his empire to reward those who could defeat him. It was brutally honest system. Chaos formalized into governance. Darwinism applied to political structure. And it was, Vader realized with dark amusement, not entirely different from how the Sith had functioned for millennia. Master and apprentice, testing each other constantly. The apprentice eventually overthrowing the master when superiority was proven. You're offering me position that could lead to your overthrow, Vader observed. Because you believe the Empire benefits from having strongest possible ruler, regardless of who that ruler is. That is either remarkable wisdom or suicidal arrogance. It's recognition of reality, the Emperor corrected. I've ruled for 32 years. I've survived countless assassination attempts, crushed rebellions, and expanded the Empire's territory threefold. But I'm 67 years old, Lord Vader. Human aging is inevitable. In 10 years, 20 at most, someone will defeat me. either through superior tactics, better planning, or simply because I've grown too old to maintain absolute control. When that happens, I want my successor to be worthy of the empire I built. I want someone who understands power, who can wield it effectively, who can continue expanding humanity's reach across the galaxy. He turned to face Vader directly. I think you might be that successor. Not immediately. You're still adjusting to this universe, still learning our politics. But in time, with authority to reshape military culture and demonstrate your superiority, you could build foundation for ascending to throne legitimately, through demonstrated capability rather than assassination. Wouldn't that be preferable to staging coup? Vader's respirator cycled thoughtfully. The Emperor was offering something Palpatine never had, acknowledgement that Vader's power might eventually exceed his master's, combined with framework for transition of authority that didn't require betrayal or violence. It was invitation to plan succession openly, to build power base with imperial blessing, to prepare for ascension that would be recognized as legitimate rather than treasonous. It was manipulation wrapped in opportunity, but it was also genuine. I accept your offer, Vader said after mechanical pause. On one condition. My position includes authority to restructure advancement protocols within divisions. I command. Officers under my authority will advance through demonstrated competence in tactical simulations and combat, effectiveness rather than through assassination or political maneuvering. I will implement merit-based system that rewards excellence and eliminates incompetence. This will face resistance from officers accustomed to current system. You must support my authority when that resistance manifests. The Emperor extended his hand. Done. You get merit-based advancement within your sphere of authority. I support you against resistance. And in exchange, you provide tactical innovations that make my empire unstoppable. Plus, his smile became something darker. You provide Section 31 with fascinating case study in whether order through discipline can coexist with chaos through assassination in same organization. They're quite curious about the experiment. Vader grasped the Emperor's hand, sealing alliance between tyrants who understood power's mathematics. Section 31 will find their answer over next decade. Either my model proves superior and gradually replaces current system, or current system proves resilient and absorbs my innovations without fundamental change. The experiment is worth conducting regardless of outcome. Spoken like true scientist, the Emperor replied, though I suspect you already know which outcome you intend to manifest. Just as you knew Cord's battle group would fall before you engage them. Your force-based precognition gives you unfair advantage in planning campaigns. Section 31 finds that capability both invaluable and terrifying. Fear is appropriate response to unfamiliar power, Vader acknowledged. But precognition is tool, not guarantee. I perceive probabilities, not certainties. The future remains fluid, shaped by decisions and chance. I simply have better information for making those decisions. The Emperor moved to his desk, pulling out formal document that bore imperial seals and authorization codes. Grand Admiral Darth Vader, Commander of Tactical Innovation Division, with full authority to implement advanced combat doctrine across Terran Empire fleet assets. Effective immediately. Report to Imperial Research Facility. 17 tomorrow. That's where your scientists are waiting. Commander Rand remains as Section 31 liaison. And Lord Vader. The Emperor's tone hardened fractionally. Congratulations on achieving authority that most admirals spend lifetimes pursuing. You accomplished it in 3 months through sheer competence. That's unprecedented. Also dangerous. Watch your back. The officers you're displacing through merit-based advancement will resent you. Some will accept new order. Others will attempt assassination regardless of my support. The Terran Empire doesn't change easily. I survived the Jedi Purge, the Clone Wars, and 2 decades of imperial politics, Vader replied, accepting the document. I will survive Terran resistance to evolution. Those who embrace change will prosper. Those who resist will serve as examples of why resistance is futile. The transformation has begun, Emperor. In 10 years, your fleet will be unrecognizable. In 20, your empire will operate according to principles I established today. And when you eventually fall, whether to age, assassination, or simply someone stronger, the empire I've built within your empire will continue. I'm counting on it. The Emperor said with dark satisfaction. Build me an empire that outlasts me, Lord Vader. That's the only immortality any emperor achieves. Not through conquest, but through systems that persist beyond the conqueror. You have my blessing, my authority, and my curious anticipation to see whether a Sith Lord from another dimension can reshape humanity's chaos into something approaching your galactic empire's order. Vader departed Imperial command with formal commission, unlimited authority, and recognition that he'd just committed to decade-long project of cultural transformation. The shuttle ride back to Enterprise passed in contemplative silence, Rand wisely choosing not to interrupt his meditation. Through the Force, Vader felt the currents of his new reality. Probabilities shifting, futures manifesting, the long game he'd initiated beginning its inexorable progression toward outcomes only he could fully perceive. The Terran Empire thought they'd acquired tactical genius to improve their military effectiveness. They were correct, but incomplete. They'd actually acquired Sith Lord with patience measured in decades, vision spanning generations, and absolute commitment to imposing order on chaos regardless of how long transformation required. Vader had spent 20 years serving Emperor Palpatine's vision, building an empire through the Clone Wars and the Purge. He could spend another 20 building something new here. Empire refined through lessons learned, power structured through competence rather than fear, order maintained through demonstrated superiority rather than political manipulation. And if he never found the means to return home? If dimensional travel proved impossible and he remained trapped in this universe indefinitely? Then the Terran Empire would become his masterwork, his legacy, his proof that even darkness could be perfected, chaos transformed into discipline, and power wielded with precision that made tyrants like Palpatine look crude by comparison. Back aboard the Enterprise, Kirk greeted him with rare genuine smile. Grand Admiral Vader. Has a nice ring to it. Does this mean I'm working for you now instead of alongside you? It means we continue partnership, Vader corrected. The Enterprise remains experimental tactical vessel. You retain command. I provide strategic guidance and use. Your crew as demonstration of what disciplined excellence achieves. Other vessels will follow our example. Other commanders will adopt our methods. And gradually, ship by ship, officer by officer, the Terran Empire will transform from chaotic collection of ambitious killers into something approaching the Galactic Empire's efficiency. That's going to make a lot of people very angry, Kirk observed. Admirals who advance through assassination won't appreciate merit-based competition. Section 31 will monitor every breath you take. And somewhere in the Empire, someone brilliant and ruthless is already planning how to kill you before you accumulate too much power. Let them plan, Vader replied, his respirator cycling with dark satisfaction. Let them plot, scheme, and attempt their assassinations. I have faced armies, fleets, and force wielders who thought themselves invincible. I have survived Jedi Masters and Sith Lords. I have walked through fire and emerged, transformed into living darkness. Those who challenge me will learn what every enemy eventually learns. Darth Vader does not fall. Others fall around him. Always. Through the Enterprise's viewports, Earth rotated majestically, humanity's cradle, the Terran Empire's heart, and now the base from which Vader would launch his greatest campaign. Not conquest through military force, but transformation through demonstration of superior methodology. Evolution forced upon a species that believed chaos was strength. The Jedi had failed to bring balance to the Force because they'd tried, through peace and meditation. Palpatine had succeeded through manipulation and fear. But Vader would achieve something neither Jedi nor Sith had accomplished: balance through order, power through discipline, empire through merit rather than murder. It would take decades. It would face resistance. It would require patience, planning, and absolute commitment to vision that most beings could not perceive. But Vader had learned patience from Palpatine, had learned planning from the Clone Wars, had learned commitment through pain, loss, and transformation into something beyond human or Jedi. He was Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, now Grand Admiral of the Terran Empire. And the galaxy, this galaxy, so different from his own, yet fundamentally the same in its darkness and potential, would learn that chaos was not strength. Order was strength. Discipline was power. And darkness perfected was unstoppable. The Force whispered agreement. swirling around him with satisfaction that transcended dimensions, connecting to energies this universe didn't understand but would soon learn to fear and respect. The transformation had begun. The long game was in motion, and Darth Vader had all the time in the universe to win it. 3 years after Darth Vader materialized aboard the ISS Enterprise, the Terran Empire's military culture had begun its metamorphosis. 17 vessels now operated under Tactical Innovation Division. Protocols, crews trained in Vader's Imperial doctrine, officers advancing through merit simulations rather than assassination. Victory rates approaching 93% across all engagements. The Klingon Empire had requested formal treaty to avoid further conflicts with vessels, employing demon tactics. The Romulan Star Empire had withdrawn forces from 3 contested sectors, their cloaking advantage neutralized by graviton detection now deployed across select Imperial warships. And in the shadows of Imperial command, whispers grew louder. The Dark Lord was not merely tactical genius, but revolutionary. Not merely asset, but potential successor. Not merely Grand Admiral, but future Emperor who would reshape humanity's destiny according to principles forged in another galaxy's darkness. Vader stood in his personal chambers aboard the newly commissioned ISS Executor, a sovereign class battleship he'd designed specifically to implement his most advanced tactical concepts. Through the viewports, stars streamed past at Warp 9 as his flagship led a battle group toward the Beta Quadrant, where rumors spoke of species called the Borg who might prove worthy opponents. Commander Rand entered with daily intelligence briefing, her presence now familiar companion rather than surveillance threat. Section 31's assessment arrived, Admiral. They've concluded that you're simultaneously the Empire's greatest asset and its most inevitable successor. The Emperor agrees. He's begun preparing transition protocols. Apparently, he believes you'll ascend to the throne within 10 years. Longer, Vader corrected. 15 years minimum. I want cultural transformation complete before I claim authority. An emperor without loyal officers is merely dictator waiting to be overthrown. I will build loyalty through competence, respect through results, and power through demonstration that my way works better than chaos ever did. The Sith way, Rand observed. Order through strength. Peace through power. You're turning the Terran Empire into something it's never been. Disciplined, efficient, and terrifyingly effective. I am turning the Terran Empire into what it should have been from its inception, Vader replied. Humanity's potential wasted on petty assassinations and political games. Your species conquered dozens of worlds through chaos. Imagine what you could accomplish through order, through the Force. Vader felt his flagship's crew, hundreds of officers trained in his methods, demonstrating competence that made conventional Starfleet vessels appear amateur by comparison. They served not through fear, but through recognition that excellence was rewarded, mediocrity eliminated, and loyalty to superior doctrine was path to survival and advancement. It was foundation, merely beginning, but foundations built properly supported empires that endured centuries. Vader had never found the dimensional rift that brought him here. His scientists had concluded that such rifts were random, unpredictable, possibly unique. Returning to the Star Wars galaxy might be impossible, but standing here, commanding fleet that would soon dominate entire quadrant, reshaping empire according to principles he'd learned serving Palpatine and refined through his own vision, Vader discovered he no longer mourned his lost universe. Perhaps this was the Force's will. Perhaps the Chosen One's destiny was never to bring balance to one galaxy, but to bring order to another. Perhaps everything, his fall, his pain, his transformation into Vader, had prepared him for this moment. To take species on the edge of greatness and guide them toward perfection. The Jedi would have called it corruption. Palpatine would have called it conquest. But Vader understood it as evolution, darkness refined into something that served purpose beyond mere tyranny. Power wielded not for domination's sake, but for transformation of chaos into order, weakness into strength, potential into achievement. Admiral, the communications officer called from the bridge. We're approaching the Beta Quadrant border. Sensors detect unusual subspace distortions. Configuration matches Borg reports from intelligence. Vader moved to the bridge. his presence filling the command center with dark authority. Red alert. All vessels, battle stations. We will engage the Borg using advanced tactical protocols. If these cybernetic beings are as formidable as reports suggest, they will test whether our innovations function against truly alien threat. Prepare to demonstrate why the Terran Empire's transformation has made us unstoppable. Through the viewports, distant stars glimmered with promises of new challenges, new victories, new demonstrations that would further cement Vader's legend and accelerate his inevitable ascension. The Force swirled around him with dark satisfaction, connecting across dimensions to energies both familiar and strange. In this universe, there were no Jedi to oppose him, no rebels to resist, no Palpatine to control him, only an empire waiting to be perfected and a destiny finally, completely his own. Darth Vader had arrived in the Terran Empire as stranger, weapon, an unknown threat. He had become their greatest commander, their future emperor, and the architect of transformation that would echo across centuries. And when historians of this universe eventually recorded humanity's evolution, from chaotic conquerors to disciplined empire, they would mark this moment when the Dark Lord from another dimension arrived and showed them what true power looked like. Not chaos masquerading as strength, but order perfected through discipline, darkness wielded with precision, and a Sith Lord who finally understood that his destiny was never to serve an emperor, but to become one.